So just like last time, I use Cubase for all the recording and mixing. I did use Adobe Audition to master, just because I'm used to it, but I did use, like I said, Cubase for all tracking and all mixing. I used Cubase 7 for this series. And yeah, this is pretty much what the mix sounds like. And I think, I mean, you guys, if you've seen any of the videos and you've heard the mix many times, but this was really a comfortable, extremely comfortable mixing experience. Obviously, the more you use the program, the more comfortable you get with it. And it's been a long time since I produced some videos. So when it came around to doing this, I was very, very comfortable and I knew exactly what sound I wanted, and I got it relatively quickly. But the biggest thing that I want to talk about with regards to mixing, which is something that I kind of alluded to earlier, which is the room mics. A lot of guys asked me how I got that room sound, because I think engineers and producers and people who know a little bit about audio production would listen to the drum mix and go, it doesn't sound like you're in a dead small room. And the reason why is because like I said, when I spoke about the mics, I used 2 Samson CO2s spaced far away from the kit to get kind of a room sound. And this is what they sound like with no effects, so no equalizers, and also no reverb. So this is just the room mics panned far left and far right behind the kit. So it doesn't sound vibrant, really. I mean, it gives you kind of a stereo image, but it doesn't sound alive. It doesn't sound like I'm in a big room. It definitely sounds like a small room. So to combat some of that, there's some high mids in there that kind of irritated me a little bit. So I just dropped that out using equalization. So I'll just enable it while I'm playing it so you can hear the difference. This is without. And that's with. So you can hear it's a little bit clearer. And it also doesn't have those slightly, maybe a little bit irritating high mids in the mix as well. So I just dropped those out. As you can see, that's what the equalization looks like. And then what I did to give it some space and to give it some vibrancy and some size is to add reverb. And these are all stock plugins. These are no like expensive plugins that I bought afterwards. They just came with Cubase. But once again, I'll just play it for you dry. And then I'll just enable the reverb so you can hear what it does to the sound. So it'll be really crystal clear that it makes it sound much bigger and like a bigger room. And then I'll play for you what it sounds like when you actually pair it with the rest of the mix. So this is the room mic, or the room mics, with no reverb, and then I'll enable the reverb as it's playing. So as you can hear, it makes a huge difference. And the reason why I'm kind of looping around this one part is because I play a really loud flam, which is this part. And you can really tell if a mix is dead when the guy plays really loud and you feel like it's not getting any louder. So when it's kind of hitting the ceiling and it just sounds like clicks and pops, then you know the mix is totally dead. So you run the risk of getting that sound in a room that is this small. So it doesn't feel like the drums breathe. And the reverb makes a huge difference. So this is what that flam sounds like without the reverb. And this is what it sounds like with the reverb. So it immediately breathes, sounds a lot bigger. The size is definitely bigger, but it becomes especially clear when you pair the room mic with the rest of the kit. So this is that same section, no room mic. So super punchy, super dry. Some people really like that sound. It's very rock, I guess you could say. But for me, specifically with the tuning of the drums, specifically with the tuning of the snare, it sounds a little bit too dry for me. So that's where the room mic makes all the difference. It took me a really long time to figure out that a good snare sound comes from the room mics. The mics on the snare itself are supplemental. They give the attack. They give some body to it, but they don't help the drum to breathe. That comes from the overheads and room mics if you've got room mics. So that took me a really, really long time to learn. So if you take anything away from this video, then please take that. So let me play you the difference again. I'm going to play that same part because that's the the loudest snare hit in this whole thing. But this is the snare hits without the room mics, and then I'll enable room mics and play it again. This is with room mics. So it makes a huge difference. This is without. And this is with. So yeah, it's definitely audible how big of a difference it makes. Like I said, for me, the snare sound, the life of the drums comes from overheads, if the room is nice, and if the room isn't nice, then you can do some tricks with kind of simulating reverb on room mics. But if you've got a nice room, definitely get some room mics up. But I'd say that's probably the biggest thing in terms of the mix. One thing I do regret about the mix though, not as much the mix as it is the drums. I regret tuning the snare this high. I think I should have tuned the snare a little bit lower. I used another snare for Critical Acclaim, which, like I said, is the Neil Peart Snakes and Arrows snare, which is tuned a lot lower, and it was also a deeper drum. So it was 14 by 6.5. And I love that tone. It was so beefy and fat. And I like the top head to have a lot of articulation, to be crystal clear, which is kind of why I tuned it a little bit tighter. But it was really difficult to get the drum to breathe because it was so tight. So I think in the future, definitely I'm just going to tune it a little bit lower so it has a little bit more body, a little bit more bite, as opposed to just this super attacky, crystal clear mix. But I think it's fine for this. But like I said, if I were to do it again, I think I would tune the snare just a little bit lower.